What's up guys, welcome back to On The Brick with another awesome build. As today I have the Snowspeeder from Flying Waffle. If you like what you see today, I would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing, and if you're interested in this model, a link to the instructions will be in the description down below. And remember, you can always save 15% off of any brickvault instructions by using my code ONTHEBRICK.FUN. Now this model has very recently been updated to also include the Snowspeeder version, which no one really cares about, and maybe one day I'll review that, but today's video is solely on the beloved Snowspeeder. The build itself contains 547 pieces in the Snowspeeder, and I did actually get the stand this time, which includes another 101 pieces for a total of 648. Now this is actually one of the older models on brickvault's website, but it holds up extremely well, and to no surprise, Flying Waffle is a pretty good designer. I did have several concerns about this model going in that put me off from buying it and building it for, well, several years now, but I bit the bullet to try it out as it is one of my favorite vehicles, and quite recently I got the UCS AT-AT and thought this would go great with it. So how was it? Well, honestly, this is one of the better builds I've had in quite a while now. I have two minor complaints about this build that we will get into shortly, but I'll be honest right now, both are more to do with the pieces I had and less to do with the model itself. Because the build process of this Snowspeeder is quite easy. There are some trickier elements and some areas that novice MOC builders might need to take an extra second with, but there's nothing overly complicated here, and there certainly isn't anything that is just way too fragile like I tend to see in builds that are on the smaller side. When I first saw this model, I was very worried that would be the case. I thought maybe putting the wings on would cause it to all snap apart, or maybe those front triangle areas are just barely held on. And those front triangle areas are barely held on, but in a surprisingly secure way. I've moved this thing around, I've flown it around, I've moved it from several rooms and readjusted it for several shots here, and never had any issues with any parts of this model. There was not a single piece that I was worried would fall off, because this is just constructed extremely well. And when it's all said and done, you are looking at a model that is 7 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 2 inches tall, not including the stand. So this doesn't take up that much room at all. And with well under 1,000 pieces, you can easily pump this out in an afternoon. Now, one of the biggest struggles with smaller models has always been getting details correct. Sometimes with the limited sizes and choices of Lego, you just have to sacrifice them. But that's not really the case here. While the Snowspeeder has never been overly detailed, there are still small touches that do matter. Things that just make this feel more real. Or, just look more like the models we see in the shows and movies. Like the extra slope piece which only exists on one side of the Snowspeeder. Or how the flaps do open. I forgot to film that, so this is just a picture from brickvault's website. And of course this thing on the back. So slight tangent, I actually bought this as a complete set from someone just selling their collection on eBay. This did not come from like Mold King or anything, this just came from a private seller getting rid of some of their sets. And they kind of forgot to send me the string, but everything else was perfect, so I don't really care. But just know that the grappling hook is supposed to go into this hole here. Again, here's brickvault's website to show you what it's supposed to look like. And it is actually functional, you can reel it in if you want. And then you have the rear blaster here, which technically can move if you really want it to. The cockpit though is fully capable of opening up, it just relies on this one hinge here, and it's a very smooth process, no worries at all with it, and there is a detailed interior. You have several panels on the inside, and 2 seats which can fit minifigures. One of my favorite details of this, which is a little hard to see here, is that the joysticks on either side are just minifig hands. Always a cool detail, and one of my personal favorite pieces to use in MOCs. But while we're looking at the cockpit, this is where super minor complaint number 1 comes in. Very quick side note on this. If you are going to put minifigures inside of the Snowspeeder, you have to start with the one in the back, otherwise the one in the front gets in the way. That's not a complaint, that's just so you guys know. However, once I did manage to get both minifigures inside the Snowspeeder, something which is really easy to do, because I was using one of the newer helmets, the canopy does not close. Again, not really a problem with the model. Actually, several Snowspeeder models kind of actually have this problem, but brickvault has shown that if you use the older helmets, you'll be fine. Or you can just always take the helmet off. Again, not that big of a deal at all. And the second minor complaint actually has to do with the one area that I haven't really talked about, and that is the blasters, or lasers, or guns, or whatever you want to call these things. Now on the actual model, and like on the UCS model, they are slightly inclined so that they actually crossfire, but they don't really do that at this scale. While I am a sucker for accuracy, I also understand that sometimes you just can't do everything, and at this scale, like I said, sometimes sacrifices have to be made. So I don't really care that they're not pointing 0.2 degrees inward. But this was the only part of the build I had any trouble with. The gun on this side sat perfectly fine, but the other side didn't. And like I said, that's more to do with the piece that I had, and believe me, I searched through so many to try and find a suitable replacement. Okay, so actually while I was recording this, I noticed a little bit of a discrepancy that I had to check. Yeah, okay, so after pulling up the instructions again, I realized that I may have built mine wrong. And by may have, I mean I did. But there's a reason for it. So this is the page that I'm talking about, where you actually build these blasters and connect them. If I move to the page right before, you can see that they are connected with a simple bracket piece, and that the blasters are built around a flexible tube. Also, the pictures on brickvault's website now include a clip piece at the front, which is very much needed for these and not in the instructions. But when I was putting this together, the tube I had was just a little too long, so it stuck out the end. And the wheel piece didn't really connect with a strong enough grip, at least to the cone. And I had just gotten back from a 3-day road trip and was a little tired. That last one's a little tangential. What I'm trying to say is that this is how it's supposed to look, which is great. And this is how mine came out, which is not so great. I'll probably just go back through and readjust this at some point, because I literally realized this while editing. Also, if you build this, seriously add those clips at the front. They're not in the instructions of the original build for some reason, but they are very much needed. Okay, so with the main model out of the way, let's just very quickly look at the stand, which is a perfectly fine build. There's nothing really special to say about this. It does not stud in or anything like that onto the main model. You literally just have to place it on top and it holds it in place perfectly fine. I love stands like this because they don't require you to alter the main model in any way, and they just work. It does keep the Snowspeeder at a little bit of an angle, making this the perfect display model. So overall, I would give this a 9 out of 10 or so. The build is fun, the price to get the pieces isn't too high, the instructions at $13.99 are a little bit too high, but it's still not that bad at all. Like, I would probably put this at $9.99. And the two minor complaints are really just personal things that your mileage will vary on. So with all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Remember to like this video if you liked what you saw, and consider subscribing for future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.